All right.
Okay, well, we are just a panel of homeschool moms and one dad that are here to talk about homeschooling. We'll just introduce ourselves. I'm really glad that you're here, and here we go. This is my husband, Dusty Stoddard.
Yeah.
And I'm Amanda Stoddard.
That's right. Hasn't changed yet.
She's right. Going on 19 years now. And we have been homeschooling since just forever. Our oldest child was born in 2005, so we've done all of that homeschooling. We have 4 children, 4 daughters. I've always stayed at home. My husband works. We've lived abroad, lived all over. We homeschooled until we moved to this area, and then we began doing a homeschool co-op that meets one day of the week. And then our oldest daughter started Lone Star Dual Credit this year as a high school junior. So she's taken a full load. So I basically don't homeschool her anymore. So that's how we do it.
All right, Lori.
Okay, well I'm Lori Ford, and I have 9 children in all, and 3 are away at college by now, and I have still 6 remaining at home. I'm a bit of a different homeschooling family here because I have some that are in public school and some that homeschool with me. And the way I've generally tended to do it is I homeschool my younger crowd, and then when they hit around the 7th, 8th grade age range, I transfer them into public school. And so that's just worked really well for our family. And my youngest is 5, so she just started in the kindergarten range, and so we're still reading with her. My husband, he works away daily, and I'm the one that stays home with the children. And generally I'm the one in charge of their schooling.
Awesome. Miss Angie.
I'm Angie Webb. I have 6 children, 4 are grown, and I'm currently homeschooling 2 grades. I don't know grades. They're 15 and 13. My youngest daughter has some learning disabilities, so that's been like a whole new ball game. I graduated my 4 grown children. I homeschooled them as well and graduated them. So I currently stay home and just work with the girls and drive Audrey to all the therapies. I guess that's it, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
enough? All right.
And I'm Peggy Giese, and my husband and I have been married 40 years. We're old.
That's awesome.
And our oldest child is 38, and our youngest is 18. We have 8. Homeschooled them all. Last year was really my last year to be responsible myself to make sure my kid wasn't just playing video games. And I think when we first started 33 years ago, when Christina, the oldest, was only 5 going into kindergarten, we lived overseas, and English was everybody's second language. And that was when there was a big push in Texas that all of the teachers in public school had to pass a certain test so that they could teach in English. And I thought that was a great idea. But there were so many teachers on the little island that we lived that couldn't ever pass that. So we thought, what are we gonna do? I just couldn't send my little 5-year-old. And all of the people, the major religion there was Catholic. Well, and I didn't want my little girl to be bending down and genuflexing to a statue on the wall. We just had to do something. And to be respectful, but we just had to do something. And there were lots of other people on the island that were in our same boat, and other folks that did the same thing that my husband did. And they said, come on over. We want to talk to you for a little bit. So we went over, and I only had 3 girls at the time. And she said, this is what we do, and you can get this done, and you can do this and this and this. And the Lord was so good and gentle with me, because the first year I just had one to do. The The second year I had 2 to do. The third year I had 3 to do. The fourth year we had a new baby. And so it just helped to every year. It was just something, but I could handle it because it wasn't all at once. The Lord was very, very gentle. And that worked very well for us. And I think that, I don't know, is now when I can tell my verse that we built our family on? Or do I need to do that another
No,
day?
No, that's fine.
You can
Yeah,
do
I was
that.
gonna, none of us did, why did you choose to homeschool? So we'll have to go back down the line.
Okay, well, we went to a small little church, and that's where my husband got saved, actually. And we were thinking, what are we gonna do? Why do we need to do this? And we actually wrote down on a piece of paper the pros and cons of homeschooling and not homeschooling when we first started. And everything pointed to, yes, we need to do this. And the first one on the list was to follow the Lord. And it was really great to see that my husband was 100% behind it. And I didn't have to argue or talk him into it at all. It was just, that's how we were gonna manage. And it always has been that way, and I'm so grateful. But as a couple of years later, the Lord just impressed upon me as we were reading every day. We would read together as a family. Of course, when they got to be about third grade, about age 7, they all got a Bible, and then they could read with us as a family. But until then, we would read that to them. And the set of verses that the Lord gave to us and how we had our family based on was found in 2 Peter 1:5. And I like the King James because it is got some depth to it for me. And besides this, giving all diligence, this one says, for this reason, make every effort. I guess that's diligent, but we've got to be diligent. We've got to be diligent, not just half-hearted, but be diligent. Add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance. But what do we have to have first? We have to have faith. That's what comes first. What comes second? Virtue, our character. What comes third? Knowledge. Academics are so important. We need to have academics. We need to be able to be a light in this world. And if we can't speak, if we can't write, if we can't add, if we can't conduct ourselves like our peers or our youngers and be examples, there's no way we'll be able to manage. But you can't just give somebody knowledge, because they're not gonna know what to do with it. They don't know how to be humble. They're just gonna be boastful, and they're gonna tell everybody how good they are. And it's not a balance. So that's how we built our family, on that particular verse. And it goes on way back down to verse 10. Wherefore, rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and the election sure. For if you do these things, you shall never fall. So it's a promise that we thought, okay, he's behind us. We can't fall with him behind us. And so that's how we've done ours. And I don't have any more kids in school. They're all grown. 17 grandkids as of last week. And my youngest just went off to school. And but I'd love to tell more, but I'll let everybody else have a little turn.
Yeah. So the question is, what led you to choosing homeschooling as your option? Anybody else? Next up?
Next up, you looked at me.
You want me to go?
Well, you're talking.
Sorry.
We got you.
Okay.
We got you now.
The reason why we chose to homeschool was because we went to a church that was predominantly homeschooling, like pretty much everybody there homeschooled, and we were just so very impressed with all the teenagers that were there. They were all so normal and mature, and they talk to you and like look you in the face, and they were wearing like decent clothes, and just like we were like, wow, these kids are kind of cool, and we just really were like, how can we get there? Like, what do we have to do to get that? And that was the common theme there, right?
Yeah, prior to that, I believe I thought homeschooling was kind of weird. I didn't really understand why people would do that, I mean, so.
Sure. And I babysat for a family that homeschooled, and I love them dearly, but they did not do, they didn't do a fantastic job with it. So I did not, and I was a public school teacher for a couple of years, got my degree in education. So I didn't have a very high opinion of homeschoolers. But when I saw those kids and I saw this huge phone book sized catalog of curricula, I was like, holy cow, there's that much. Yeah, I was like, I literally flipped through every single page of that catalog, Rainbow Resource. And I was like, if there is this much out there that is available to me, I can do this. So
God prepared you and you didn't even realize it.
Right.
How about you, Lori?
Yeah, I had also noticed other families, and so Rance and I had been big admirers of homeschooling, but had just followed the flow of things and sent our kids to school, public school to start out with. And then we were kind of confronted with issues with our oldest child, and we're like, why don't we just try out this homeschooling thing and, give it a shot, because we're seeing so many successful families do it. And so we brought one child home, and this was 13 years ago. The oldest came home, and he homeschooled with us for the first year. And then the others were still going to public school, and I had also babies at home. And then it was successful. Like, this really does work. And then I wasn't so sure if I was going to be homeschooling the next one, but then we had a circumstance occur with him in school, and he had this worksheet given to him in school, and it had to do with, it was a reading comprehension worksheet, but it was about comprehending the evolution of whales and how they had sprouted legs become land animals, and he was supposed to give the timeline of when that had occurred based on his reading.
Oh dear.
And my own little child had written notes to his teacher about how God had created the animals, and animals could not sprout legs and walk out of land. And I couldn't square it away anymore, sending my child away to a school when he was too young to really understand this whole truth thing, and having to debate a teacher. And so I'm a real science person, my husband and I both are, and so that was like, okay, you're being homeschooled now. And then we brought home the other two girls the next year, and so we predominantly homeschooled them, the younger children, since then.
And like I said earlier, some things happened at my oldest son was in 3rd grade, and some things were happening at his public school that I was not thrilled about. And so I began to look into other options, and when I found out how much private school cost, I knew that wasn't an option.
That's true.
And so I was really searching for an answer, and that's when our pastor's wife said, if God's calling you to homeschool, He'll make a way. And I was like, God calls people to homeschool? I thought you just did it if you wanted to, and I don't want to. And I too thought they were weird. I used to say they were herb people. Homeschoolers were herb people. And yes, no lie. Those are herb people. But then.
Now that's us.
Yeah, exactly. Now that's me.
We all laugh, but it's true.
It's true. I know. So anyway, I prayed about it, and that is the one thing that the clearest I've ever heard God speak to me. I mean, I didn't hear Him audibly, but I knew that is what He told us to do. And it was hard, and I wouldn't change it for anything, but it was not easy, and we worked through it. At that time, I had 3 children, 3rd grade, kindergarten, and a 2-year-old. And she took a lot of baths. She called it swimming in the bathtub, and we would put her in the bathtub to swim. She would swim for hours, and you didn't have to worry about her drowning because you could hear her singing and playing. And so I could homeschool the boys while she swam in the bathtub. and that worked. But then, I don't know, am I supposed to stop now, or what? I don't know what to.
That's the why of why you started homeschooling.
So that's why we started homeschooling.
Because you could swim in the bathtub.
Well, my daughter did, yeah.
I love it.
I didn't.
Everybody needs a reason.
It's
so.
good. Everybody needs a reason. Okay, so I think we actually got through that question. So the next question then for everybody, we'll take a turn answering this, is what does your typical day look like as a homeschooling parent? What does the typical day in your household look like? You're like, typical is not a real answer to that.
No.
But in general, you know, kids who are going to public school have the show up at 6:30, you know, and then they come home at 4:15 or 4:30 or 4:45, and you don't really know somewhat of all what's going on, but you know, you can find out. So what does the typical day at your household look like, if there is any such thing?
Sure. Hi,
Come on in.
Hey.
Yeah, go on in.
We're talking about our typical day of homeschooling. Each one of us have homeschooled, either currently or in the past.
A typical day in our house is I'm usually getting them up probably about 7, and I have them, you know, get dressed, make their bed, and come eat breakfast, and we pretty much get cracking, usually by about 8 o'clock, and then I usually work with my youngest one on math, and while my other daughter does like her math, and then I'll send her off to do her math, and then I'll work with the other one, check her math, go over the lesson, what are you doing? And it's really very fluid now. It did not used to be so fluid when I had 4 at home homeschooling, and when they were very little. It was much more structured. Right now my day is very fluid. We kind of just do what you need to do. We make sure that at some point we do the subjects that we do together, like grammar, and we do language kind of root words study, and then we do a missionary study. So we do those together, usually around lunchtime, and then the rest of the day really is pretty fluid, just doing their co-op work.
Can I interrupt
Yes,
you just
Peggy.
for a minute? Say how old your kids are?
Yes.
Because now they are much more independent
You're
learners.
right, that is an excellent
So-
point, thank you. So my daughters right now that I homeschool are almost 13 and 10 and a half. So they're very capable of doing independent work, and I can tell them go do that, and while I'm working on the other one, they have a planner where they'll check off things that we do during the day. So they check it off, then I check it, then I check it off, and that means you're done. When they were younger, it was much more structured. I would have half-hour blocks of what you do every day for all 4 of them. They all had a schedule that was very detailed. Monday, this is what your schedule looks like. Tuesday, this is what your schedule looks like. I mean, to the point that on Monday, the youngest, when she was 3, on Monday, you're gonna play with Lincoln Logs for this half hour that I need to go do this. On Tuesday, you're gonna play with puzzles for this half hour. On Wednesday, you're gonna play with Legos or whatever. Like, it was that methodical, that structured, because that built-in time gave me time to work with the others, and creating that level of discipline, and you're gonna do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it, translates to when they're older. Here's your work for the day, go do your work for the day. Or here's your work for the week, go do your work for the week. So that's kind of what our day looks like right now. It's very fluid now, but my kids are older and there's only 2 of them, so we kind of have the freedom to do that. And we do co-op classes that leads them, that kind of guides some of their studies too.
All right. Lori, what's your typical day like?
Yeah, ideally, I've always wanted to head that direction, but it doesn't happen in my home that way.
It
We
won't
are-
happen in everybody's home
And
that way, so I'm
everybody's
kinda
different.
glad that,
Yes.
you know,
Probably around 8 o'clock-ish. I'm calling upstairs, everyone get up, let's go, you know. And so, probably around 9 o'clock, we've got people dressed now, we've got people who had their breakfast, and I've got people downstairs, and everyone has like a checklist of things that I've written in, usually Sunday or Monday morning before they've gotten up. I've written a checklist of kind of what is expected. I'm sorry, actually Tuesday, because on Monday
Yeah.
we're co-op. But a checklist of things that they're gonna need to be doing in the week. And so we get cracking, and then I usually take my I have, by the way, I have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, 9-year-old, and 13-year-old that homeschool right now.
I need to
And-
bring an 8-year-old. Seriously.
We,
She fit right in.
we do a science together with the people at the table, and those are my younger people because they need to work with me still on that. And then like my older 13-year-old, she independently can do her science on her own. In fact, she'll sometimes pair up with other students, actually her daughter, and we pair them together like one day a week to just kind of review each other. And then I will also work one-on-one with each of my children in their spelling, the younger ones. The older one, we're kind of past spelling lessons. Then I have to dedicate my time to do reading with my kindergartner because that's for sure a one-on-one thing. But my goal in any of my days is, well, my whole homeschooling career is to get my children independently learning. So, yeah, so I'll do group things with others, and then the others are independently learning. And so then it's kind of their choice what order they want to work their stuff in. But they do work down their checklist. Their mathematics is done on the computer. Not for I don't do kindergartner math. And my 2nd grader, he has a reading and he kind of works that along with me. My time is taken with a lot of one-on-one time because I have younger people. And so, yeah, it just takes, and my homeschooling day lasts probably till around 3-something.
Yes, yeah.
We're probably the most laid back of all. It's almost embarrassing, but so I start yelling at people to get up too, and they're not easy to roust out of the bed at all. And then my youngest is 13, but she is not as independent as would normally be because she's extremely dyslexic and has some auditory processing issues and some other learning disabilities that have challenged us. But it's getting much better. So we get up and everything that, I shouldn't say everything, because it is really getting better. I can now give her a math worksheet, which is kind of nice because I can go clean the kitchen while she does that. And, I don't have to be right with her the entire time, but I have to be with her as much probably as you do with your younger kids. Now, my older daughter is in high school and she kind of knows what she has to do, and I don't have to do a checklist anymore because our curriculum has the checklist in it. And so she kind of just knows, I do this lesson and then, she has to turn in to check. And the truth is there are times when I'm busy and I forget and she forgets and I don't check until, we've done 3, 4, even 5 lessons, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And so then we sometimes have to go back if there's a problem. But
That's
anyway, so that's kind of how that works. Oh, and Audrey's therapy. She goes to therapy 3 times a week. She does dyslexic therapy twice and speech therapy for her auditory processing. She does that once a week. So I feel like we drive a lot. But so currently, because it's changed a lot, they changed our dyslexic therapy a lot. But it's really working best now. We are at 12:45. We have to be there, which was much better than driving home at 5:15 in the horrible traffic. But so that's her reading on those 2 days. I mean, we do, and they give us homework. We have homework for our therapy, so that's what I do for her reading curriculum anymore, is just our therapy work. We have homework for the speech therapy too, so basically do math and therapy work is our basics. And then I read aloud to her history and then she reads to me from whatever the therapist has given her to read. And now they're letting us pick our own books now, so that's good.
Excellent.
Improvement.
How about you, Peggy? What did your
The way our family worked, since we have 8 kids, Lord had a great sense of humor. He really and truly did. We had 3 that had graduated from high school and 3 that didn't know how to read yet. So we were stretched, and my two in the middle, they're best buds, and still today at 28 and 30, one boy and one girl are still best buds. But the way we would work when we were still adding kids, we'd get up every morning and read as a family at 7:30. We'd read a psalm and a proverb every day. Back to my verse, add to your faith virtue. We had one character quality a month that we would study, that we would do projects on, that we would do in depth. If we go to church is always open. You go to church Sunday school, then you go to your message, and then you go to the evening service, and then you go to Wednesday service. I mean, we get all kinds of stuff, and most of the time they don't all match. I mean, it's not all on the same topic. It's all different topics. So I learned that we have to focus on one topic at a time in our house. And so we would take that character quality and do it for the whole month. And we would use that character quality in our vocabulary. We'd write about it. We would look in our verses for that day, who said something about being discreet. What does that mean? What does discretion mean? They were all character qualities of Jesus, is what they all were. So, and I've got some great resources in the back that I brought. But we would read novels. I would read to them. We would be done maybe around 9 o'clock. So as a family, we gathered for an hour and a half. Sometimes a little longer if we got to talking about something that everybody wanted to keep talking about. We never cared about that, because really the only thing that was waiting for us was breakfast, and everybody could they had to be 13 in order to drink coffee where we were reading. So that was our big thing in our house, to turn 13 and they could have coffee while we did that. But then we would break for an hour and 15. So between 9 and 10, do your ABCs. Your appearance, brush your teeth and your hair. Your B, your bed had to be made. Your bedroom with your clothes cleaned up. C, you had to do your chore. Everybody had chores, and they had to get their chore done. They would rotate. Sometimes it would be feeding the animals. Sometimes it was sweeping the kitchen floor. Sometimes, it was getting your clothes in the laundry. I didn't do laundry. I taught my kids how to do laundry, so I didn't do that. And my husband does it today, so I still don't do laundry. But your D is to get dressed, including your shoes and socks. We're not going to be lazy. We're going to get dressed. And the E is to eat. I don't care what order you do your ABCs, but it was so much easier for me to say, do your ABCs, rather than, have you brushed your teeth? Did you make your bed? I would put that on them. I gave them that responsibility, and by the time you're 3, you knew what your ABCs were. You knew to go find I would lay those out for the little ones. And they would have their clothes laid out so they could get dressed. But that's how we managed our family when we were still growing. I'd have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner helper every single day. It was when somebody wasn't my breakfast helper that they would be practicing piano or practicing the violin or practicing it. They would do that within that hour. And then by 10 o'clock or 10:15 max, we would do a drill sheet. Everybody did a drill sheet. I don't care if you're 14, you gotta still know long division. We would have drill sheets. And the little ones would just have the little 1+3s, But we would do a drill sheet. We called that penny math. I didn't give my kids an allowance, but they earned their pennies. They had to sit down and do their drill sheet every day. And if they didn't do their drill sheet right at 10 or 10:15, whatever we decided that day, then they wouldn't get any pennies for it, but they still had to do it. So that was their motivation, and then pretty soon they learned how to, okay, how many pennies did I get today? And, you know, I had to actually, okay, I mean, when they got to be bigger, they were, you know, 100 of them on the sheet, you know, that would be $1 a day, you know, times so many kids, and yeah, it would just, okay, you're just getting a half a penny for each one, 50 cents max, and that was it.
Inflation.
But they understood all that, and we carried on with that type of routine. I learned from other homeschooled families on how they managed things. That seemed to work for us for over 20 years, how we did that, and it just, we found something that worked and we stuck with it. There's a great resource in the back that Amanda brought, and I think Lori did too, managers of your home. And it really helps to give you a concrete idea of how to organize your home, whatever your situation might be, whether you've got to work for 3 hours in a row and then get in some reading, and work another hour and a half and get in some math. It really helped to figure out, okay, who's gonna do laundry when, and we did it one room at a time. We had a lot of kids, and so bedroom number 1 did theirs Monday, bedroom number 2 did theirs on Tuesday, and it just worked great. Now, I didn't even have to tell you, okay, whose turn is it to do laundry today? I gave them that responsibility. By the time they were 8 and 9, they were doing their own laundry. They could get a stool and get out the clothes to put them in. Sometimes, you know, it would be tough, but they loved it. It was fun. They enjoyed that. It was a job that they had to do, so they enjoyed it. But I can see that this other question right here, what are some of the difficulties and downsides that I experienced all in the same little group?
As well as impactful benefits.
Well, the downsides is what I learned from.
Okay.
And my downsides was following up on their work that they should have done.
Hence you
I'm
have the lessons learned.
really, really, really bad at that. I would ahead of time circle the ones that they needed to do. I would make sure that, you know, if there were lots of repetition, that they'd only have to master the 2 or 3 in a math deal, or they could do every other one in their reading comprehension, you know, or do this whole sheet because this is a great story, I want you to get it, whatever. And I really did bad at following up. I really did. They would come to me if there were questions. I always didn't get it on that day. They were bad at following directions. And they learned the hard way, sometimes by not following directions, but.
So the difficulty for you then is having to be the one that is tracking that many things. It was harder.
Yeah, it was difficult for me to do the follow-up.
Okay.
Yeah, that was hard for me.
Yeah.
But otherwise, our main goal, obviously, was that they would know the Lord Jesus Christ, that they would have the character qualities that they needed, and then continue to learn. And my goal was to want them to learn. That is a huge goal, that you want your kids to be hungry for that learning and to put it in the right place. Fortunately, all of my kids have gone to college, all 8 of them. They don't all have degrees. One has a certification, a couple of them have masters, and I count that, give the praise to the Lord for that He allowed our family to be in situations where that could happen. And they're all debt-free. And that is also another huge praise. They all started going to school, like as a junior in high school, not until the last 3, because that wasn't available for us to do for the first 5. But they could only go as a senior in high school, and they all did, which was really great. So those were some good pros.
Awesome. Anybody else have their benefits
Well,
/
I definitely, the difficulties or the possible downside, like, The thing that was the hardest for me to adjust to, and that really God just really had to kind of get me to a point of breaking, it kind of came in two different spots, but they both had to do with our daughter Emma. I wanted to do our homeschooling a certain way, and I was like, you're all going to do this, we are rigorous, we are not messing around here, we're gonna go to this level, because that's how I do things. I do the hardest way, the most academic way, the most intense way. That's how I roll. And I'm like, you're doing Latin, you're doing all this memory work, you're doing all of that. And when it came to our daughter Emma, like my oldest, it was no problem. She's like she's a mini me. She's the same size as me now, but she's like right there with me. But with Emma, it was very much, if I kept going on that track with her, I was going to destroy our relationship. Like, that is not the way God wired that kid. And I was going to just ruin our relationship if I kept insisting that she do the same thing as her big sister. And so I had to get to a point, I think probably after talking to Angie one day, walking around the driveway while he was on a trip very far away for a lot of time. And I just had to get to the point of being like, this is not worth it. This is not worth it. It's not that important that this kid learns Latin. What's more important is my relationship with my child. And so God had to get me to that point of just looking at the bigger picture, reminding me, like, the ultimate real good for why I want to homeschool is to provide an environment where my kids know the Lord and where they love their family and you know, they participate in it. And so anyway, that was my hardest thing. The other was just,
And God gave you a laid-back friend.
yes, to remind me of these things. Yes, absolutely. And just the other thing with Emma was just, it provided, one of the downsides for me, and this came about with my older child, was that I was so regimented and so scheduled that my oldest child started getting to the point where she couldn't adjust to something different. Like, she couldn't shift gears because she was so used to the methodical way that our life was structured that she, like, God provided with our second daughter. She had to had some major health illness stuff that it provided in a huge way. Catherine had to learn how to be
Opportunity
flexible.
for growth.
It was a major opportunity for growth for that kid, and I think she learned it kicking and screaming. But like God, you know, He provides what we need, and He gives our kids what they need. But those were definitely the two difficult things for us. So.
Do I get to answer any of
You
these?
can,
You
yeah,
can
go ahead.
answer. You can talk.
I wasn't sure, okay.
Only if you move the purple cup.
I think just one impactful benefit that I can see, maybe just practically, is the flexibility of time, and not so much in your day, but in your just your calendar, because you don't have to take vacations at the peak travel times of the year. You can kind of take the nice time of the year and go on a trip if you have time.
During
to
the
go.
week at the cheap rate.
Yeah,
Exactly.
or during the fall when the leaves are changing, stuff like that. Also, like, as Amanda mentioned, another kind of practical thing about this time flexibility is when, we did kind of have a health problem with one of our kids, there was a lot of time spent at the hospital, and we were split apart for, days, sometimes at a time. And, the homeschooling aspect of that was a little challenging. We had to have a lot of help, a lot of people from the church, and probably
Angie
everybody at the table here probably pitched in some to sit with our kids and help them with their homework and other things. But it allowed, the flexibility part of it came in when we did have an odd couple of days away from the hospital, we could all be together, and we didn't have to be like, well, we gotta wait till Saturday, we could do it right now. And that, it allowed us to get some, what ended up being some very precious time, together. And to shift gears, and just one downside, that's again very practical, but one income, for us, that's what it's been, so.
Takes a lot longer to save for a car when you just have one income.
Or anything else.
Or anything else.
No.
Vacations.
Yeah, we don't take a lot of vacations.
But you can take it during the cheap time.
There you go,
Yeah,
that
there you
helps.
go.
Alright, Nathan's gonna
That's
keep
it.
us on track, right?
Yep.
Unless you ladies wanted to add something real quick.
Lori hasn't given her like
It was just,
biggest downside.
actually, Peggy, you touched on this accountability thing, and I am not the most awesome person to follow up either, and so I've had to make myself, like, I just have to follow up immediately, or I try and gear them towards programs on the computer or whatever that are self-graded, computer-wise, and then it spits out the score, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're getting it. That's what I'm trying to.
The keeping it graded and the keeping on top of reading their work, and that is the biggest challenge, I think, too. You know, and for our household, but I don't know that this is a homeschooling thing, but it's meals. I am just like, I'm doing this stuff all day, I don't wanna think about food.
Yes.
Like,
It is a job, but like that speaks to that, like it is a job.
It is a job, and so by the time we're at the end of the day, I don't care what you people eat. Like, make a sandwich. Like, sandwiches are the staple in
And
our
some
home.
cereal.
Yep.
And ramen noodles.
They're not starving.
I
I
don't
agree.
like ramen noodles. I don't eat them, but they do. So.
Yeah.
But yes, checking the work is the biggest challenge. Checking their work.
What do you think from a kid's perspective? What do you hear from your kids about the thing one thing they liked most about homeschooling, and one thing, this isn't on the sheet, one thing they reflect back to you that they think is like, man, I kind of miss this. I wish I could blank. Do you hear that at all?
With my kids, when they were younger, the two that I have at home now don't miss anything. They don't have any desire to go to school. They're good. But with my older kids, they always wanted to ride the school bus.
Yes.
It was like something,
Yes.
I don't know what the thing was with the school bus, but
Magical.
they just wanted to be on a school bus. I don't know why.
Okay.
I did have, Terrell, my oldest, he really wanted to go to public school, and we considered that, and we allowed that, and it's been a real positive experience for us. And, he went, his brother wanted to do it too, his brother's gone, and so that's just kind of been the pattern in our family.
Well, I wanted to say, because a lady called the church and got my number, and she couldn't make it tonight, but a question she asked, which I couldn't answer, but you could, is if you want to put them back in school at a later date, how do you go about that? And I was like, Lori Ford could answer that, I don't have a
It's
clue.
It's not hard.
Okay.
The
For
schools
us-
have to work with you on it,
Yeah.
because they're required to bring your kids in, so.
That's a great point, yeah.
Okay, see, I didn't know. I did do it in Louisiana, and that was also 20 years ago. So 20 years ago in Louisiana, because I got divorced, and so my kids went back to public school for 2 years.
Okay.
But it was a different time and a different state, so I didn't know if it would be different in how.
Awesome. So we're going to go on to just kind of specific questions for our panelists. But you're doing an awesome job. But if you have something you really think like, man, I want to say something about this question, or this is something that really had a big impact on me, and we'll get the questions at the end as well. Yep, so we'll write them down, and we'll do like independent questioning as well. So we'll start with Amanda, and so if anybody else wants to say something, if you think she answered it well, we'll move right along. So Amanda, no pressure, just kidding. It will. Now it will. Thank you. She's like, if I'm going to answer a question, I better have a camera on me, which is true. How do you approach homeschooling extroverted and outgoing children that enjoy and need socialization? How do you approach?
It's the $1 million question, right? The
It is.
socialization. We just make it a point we go to church, we go to the park. We would provide alternate activities for our kids. I will say that when we moved back home to Texas, I was noticing that with my oldest child. It was when she was in about 4th grade. Like, I was starting to notice a little bit of the, whole stereotypical unsocialized homeschooler vibe. And I was just like, so at that point we started looking into joining a homeschool co-op. Because at the time we also went to a real small church, so there weren't a lot of kids her age. So I was like, she's she needs some people, some kids for her to be around. So we joined a homeschool co-op that met and we're still a part of it, that meets all day on Mondays, and it has 4 different classes. So that provides what I think is a perfect balance and a perfect blend of homeschooling as well as giving them kind of like school for a day. Like it works for us. Not everybody wants to be a part of a homeschool co-op, but that's kind of the way that we provided the socialization for them. And we also do like, we don't do it this year, but we did a speech and debate club that met for like 5 hours on a Thursday night. Then they'd go to speech and debate tournaments several times a year, and so I mean that was a lot. And then we go to church on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. So it's really there's not really many days that go by when you're just at home homeschooling. Like you come to really treasure those days when you're at home
You can get so much done.
homeschooling. So that's how we do.
Awesome. Anybody else have something on that one, or is that
I couldn't,
pretty well answered?
I could not work in another day out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
We had to never leave the house until after 2. That was kind of our deal. If we had a doctor appointment, if we had a dentist appointment, if we had a music lesson, I don't care. We didn't do it until after 2. We didn't answer the phone. We concentrated on what we needed to do. And I wasn't near as structured as you. Perhaps if we were, we would have gotten more done. But I had one daughter that could have probably learned a lot more than what I gave her. I would tell her by the time she was in 5th grade, you don't have to do this math, this math, this math. Oh, Mom, but I like math, I can do that. I wish I would have been able to move her along a little bit more. I didn't. But we weren't as structured in that respect, but we were not leaving the house until after 2. I couldn't fit in a homeschool co-op
Yeah.
day. That to me was
Well, there was a
day.
million of them, so they socialized with their siblings.
Exactly. Well, and we were involved in church
Yeah.
all the time. Every Sunday we would spend all day at church playing games and eating and blah blah blah. They were involved in 4-H when they were 3rd grade and up. There was 4-H to do, and it was something that boys or girls could do. So they raised animals. We had horses. When I said it was their chore, man, we had chores. They had to go out and check the
Okay.
barn, so we had things like that had to be done. But I wish I had a friend like you that could have helped me be more systematic in that. The biggest help I got was from the managers of your home.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it's very helpful.
So it sounds like you guys kind of found something that worked for your family that got you out and about with other people, whether it's sports or academics or church or something, but you
Yeah,
wanted
we're
to
not
rub
trying to lock
shoulders.
any of them in
Yeah.
the basement or anything
Yeah.
like that.
No.
Right.
Well, some people.
You don't have
Um,
basements.
It's frowned
Yeah.
upon.
Yeah.
An attic.
All right, so Angie, this one's for you. How did you make homeschooling work as a single parent on one income? You said God will provide, but like, we say that about a lot of things and we have no clue how it actually works out.
I really don't
Um,
have a clue how it worked out either.
Okay.
I cleaned houses.
Okay.
And I drugged the kids around with me. They would stay by themselves sometimes, like I said, half a day, and we just made it work. I made enough money to feed us. We weren't on food stamps. I was fortunate enough to have a house that was paid for. But I got termites in the house, and I was trying to figure out, Lord, what am I gonna do? The whole thing's gonna fall down around us. And there was a USDA loan that I was able to get at like 1% interest, and they made the payments very, very reasonable. And they came in and they did things that, like he told me to make a wish list. I had like a 3-page wish list of all the stuff I wanted to do on my home, and he came in and said, we'll do the first 3 items. but that was enough, like they treated for the termites, they fixed the termite damage, and I got floors. And actually, like a man from our church fixed the electrical stuff for me, so that wasn't even in that. But so all that got fixed, and so it was better than before. Things like that, God, He just made things work. At my oldest son didn't like going to this one house that I went to. I don't know what his problem was with this one particular house that I cleaned, but he didn't like going there. So they were in 4-H, and one of the service projects was to go to the library and volunteer to scrape stickers off. That's what they had at the time. They would put stickers on the back on when they were due. So I said, okay, if you don't want to go with me, you can go volunteer at the library. So that's what he did, and he loved it, and so it was a good place for him, and he ended up, it worked into a job for him. As soon as he was 16, they hired him at the library, which was a great place for him to work, and he could ride his bicycle from our house to the library. So he worked at the library. It really was, because he got paid holidays, like Labor Day, and yeah, I was like,
So it just
"Ooh."
it sounds like you
good.
kind of just would hit a situation, pray about it, ask the Lord for help, and He would give you some wisdom, and people would come along and help, and
That's exactly how it
there's
worked.
a good community that.
That's exactly how it worked.
Okay. For Peggy, what do you say to the parent or guardian who doesn't feel equipped educationally to teach their students in certain subjects? So some people might feel great, like, oh, I was good in math as a kid, bet you I could do that. But then you're thinking like high school algebra, calculus, whatever it might be, history,
Right.
social studies.
Right.
Did you hit how did you kind of see that navigated?
That, up until the algebra point, I felt comfortable doing that. But once we hit algebra, I was also had an infant, and I also was teaching one how to read. And I thought I can either relearn algebra so that I can teach it, or this guy doesn't learn how to read this year. What do I do? So, talking it over with my husband, he says, I'll teach the first 2 algebra. Great, really? You will? That's wonderful. My husband's a pilot, so he'd be gone a couple days a week, and the other couple of days a week, he'd be home and he'd be able to teach the kids the algebra. He took that over. Fantastic. Well, by the end of the year, we had to evaluate, as we did every year. How did we do? What do we need to change? Have they learned what I've set out to teach them? And a lot of times I didn't know. How good is their writing when they're writing a paper? Is it on level? I just never really knew. So sometimes I would ask other people that I knew had been teachers, are they really writing at an 8th grade level? Is this what I can expect? Sometimes I would have people tell me, and sometimes I wouldn't. I would just keep on going. But they all got into college English, so I guess we did okay.
You made it.
But by the end of that first year, we had to figure out, okay, do we want our girls, 3 girls were older, do we want our girls to learn algebra? Do we want our girls to learn geometry? Do we want our girls to learn algebra 2? How far do we want them to go in math? Okay, this is how it's gonna look if they do this year, next year, and the year after, and the year after.
Okay.
So we have to keep on track. Well, Dad had only finished half of the book. So we had to find another means. We did have one reading by then, by the end of the year, so that was good. But we hadn't accomplished our math goal.
So some major trial and error on some of it.
And we ended up getting a video.
Okay.
And we were able to get math-only videos for the girls. And it worked wonderfully. And they continued to do math on video. By the time they hit Algebra 1, we got videos for all of them to learn math. At that point, he turned off his homeschool hat and decided that wasn't for him. And he just kept on, but we did it that way, because I did not feel comfortable with that.
All right, so Amanda, do you want to say something?
Well, just to tack onto that, like our approach for those real high level classes is the homeschool co-op that we go to. Like that's where I get the advanced math, the high school sciences. Lori teaches biology there. Like that's where we get those things. During the year of COVID, we, I didn't go to co-op. And co-op some of the classes met virtually, but during that year I was like, well, I'm really good at like English and writing, and history, so you know, I just did those things with them, and Catherine had a teacher through co-op that taught the advanced math classes to her, just, you know, through Zoom. We got into a real hard time with writing, because like I'm just a very intuitive writer. Like I'm just like, well, it just sounds better. Like you need to change it to this because this makes more sense, or this sounds better. She's a total like math person. Like it's very black and white, left brain. She's like, but why? And I'm like, it just, come on, it just does. So like we were doing this with that. So I had to find her somebody else to teach her that. I never thought I would have to do that, but I did. So I found her a tutor that they just met through Zoom like once or twice a week, and I paid her by the hour, and it worked fantastic.
Perfect.
It was worth every penny.
Yeah, definitely reaching out to other resources.
Yeah.
I can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah, you can't do it all yourself.
Yeah, I think there's no reason to be struggling through that as a homeschooler today. There's too many online
No,
resources.
so many
and
options.
for that. Dusty, what do you think the role of a father,
I like this question.
as far as, you know, as far as
What
just
you think.
in homeschooling, how do you view your role?
You know, I think the broad category is support. And it kind of comes in different ways, you know. In our house, I think or any house probably, you know, for the dad to be, you know, on board with the homeschooling idea, has got to count for, you know, at least a big
Huge.
chunk, you know.
Yeah.
Because that carries over. I think another big one is, you know, to acknowledge that my wife has a full-time job, and that she's not, you know, a stay-at-home mom that is kind of just free to do whatever her schedule, you know, whatever she'd like to do. She's, you know, got a lot of things that she's got to accomplish in a certain amount of time, and like, you know, there's flexibility, but like it's a lot, a huge responsibility. So a full-time job. I mean, you know, as a dad expecting to load share, you know, maybe more of the household domestic stuff, you know, whatever it is, whether it's folding laundry without, you know, having to be asked too many times, or other chores like that, you know. When the kids were a lot younger, Amanda needed a day every week to just get quiet and plan for the next week. And so I would take the kids every Saturday to the park for like half the day until everybody was about to crash for a nap. And that, you know, that gave me good time with them, and it gave her the time that she needed to do her.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it really was a good situation for probably a couple of years we did that.
Oh, yeah.
So
All
it
3
was
years
a pretty
we lived there,
consistent thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think Peggy, we did kind of what y'all did on the math, but it was for a little bit lower level math. I mean, I think it was our youngest with was it?
It was like 4th grade math. It was.
Yeah.
This was one of those personality things that I was talking about with one of our other daughters, Emma. Like it just, I don't know what happened during the spring semester of COVID, but like she and I were gonna shoot each other if we kept doing math together. Like Dusty would be working from home, and he'd be hearing the yelling, you know. And he's like,
Everything okay?
what's going on? And so it was just finally just like it was the first time I'd ever fantasized about sending my kids on the big yellow bus. Like literally, I'd never gone there in my brain, but this was putting me there. And so thankfully, Dusty was working from home, and so he could flex his schedule a little bit and do math with her.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you got further than just half the book.
He did.
So actually, we're still on you, Amanda. Question here just about preparing your students for college, giving them the same opportunities to get ahead or even get scholarships. A lot of that is baked into the public school system as far as opportunities and ways to do that. How do you see that working out for the homeschool system of getting those same types of opportunities or preparing them for their education?
My modus operandi with homeschooling my kids has always been very much, we're not messing around here. Like, we're not doing this so that, you know, we can all just do whatever we want during the day. Like, we have a mission, we have a goal, we're going to do this. So I think just, you know, sticking to that as much as we can, and you know, I had a ton of help, I think, really from all these ladies during the 2 years that our daughter had all the health stuff. So I mean, I couldn't have done it without them. So having a support system built into that. But again, just further on to the college stuff, I made sure that my kids did the maths and sciences that, you know, were rigorous and that were that were rigorous. Like, it was like, this is what we're doing. We do history, and we do all the subjects. And then I think what's really been beneficial has been doing the Lone Star here. Our daughter tested in, like, since she was homeschooled, she had to pass the tests. She had to take 1 or 2 extra tests to be able to take the math course at Lone Star, pre-calculus and Calc 1. Like, she had to take an extra test to be able to enroll in those, demonstrating proficiency in math. But that, I really like the Lone Star aspect of it. For a college, it legitimizes your homeschool transcript if you've done well at, you know, a community college.
Yeah.
We've been very blessed that my dad is an accountant, and he has put money aside for them for their college funds since they were babies. And so we occasionally use some of that money. Like, we put my older one in a very highly recommended SAT prep class this summer. That was like 2.5 or 3 weeks. I mean, the first test she took was 1 score, and the second test she took was 200 points higher. So I mean, you know, sometimes it's worth, you know, spending the money if you know what you're
aiming for.
Yeah, and so that was just to up her SAT score. Hopefully she did well on the PSAT. I don't know yet, but you know, the higher SAT scores are, that you might get more scholarships.
But you know what, Amanda? Several of my kids never took the SAT or the ACT, and they've still got they still got accepted into college. And you might see how, because, you know, entrance requirements are, you know, these standardized tests. Well, they had to test good enough to get into the community college. And once they got into the community college, I would say 6 of them got their associate's degree. Okay, they got that associate's degree and transferred right into a 4-year school. And they do not have an SAT or ACT on their score, on their transcripts everywhere.
Transfer student.
They
Right.
went in
Wow.
and already having a degree,
Yeah.
and most of the time having,
That's how you did it?
most of the time being able to count all of those credits towards something. They could find a place for all those credits to go. So,
Yeah, I still had to score if I needed it, but I didn't need it because my transcript from community college was so good.
Well,
They're like,
right.
you've taken college classes.
Yes.
You have a 4.0. Yes. You know, like, it's like,
Right.
you don't have to, like,
I would
Yeah.
speak to that about the military, because my son went into the military, and they were kind of giving us a hard time over his homeschool transcript, because I wrote it. But fortunately, we were part of Homeschool Legal Defense, so I would have called them and asked them about it, but we didn't have to. Plus, I was in the middle of a move, and so I had to hunt the transcript. It was on the porch in a in a box.
That's
Yes.
before the day of the cloud.
And
Yes.
so, yes, exactly. That was the day. I'm old. Yeah, I'm old. And so anyway, he had taken some college classes. He went to, and so when they found that out, they took the college transcript. They didn't even want his high school transcript. So that's how he went into the
Yeah.
Air Force.
yeah, it's a great way to get in. Let's see here. So, we didn't come back to you on very much on this one, Laura. You got away with it. I skipped you, actually. Coming back. Didn't get away. What were some of the greatest misgivings or fears when you were first beginning to homeschool? What were some of the things that you were like, oh boy?
Well, I did kind of address it a little bit already, and that was like, how am I gonna homeschool all these kids? Like, if that's what we're really gonna be called to do, and then, that's why we kinda just brought it on gradually, one, then 2 more, and then the rest have followed along. I was never really worried about, being the teacher. I just didn't have that fear because I had a bunch of teacher friends, and we're all kind of just same kind of people, and like, I can probably handle what you do in classrooms. Teachers in the classroom seem to be able to manage. They had learned classroom management. I didn't have that skill, but I can manage my own children just fine. So that was never a fear of mine.
Okay. Anybody else have kind of something that was really like, oh boy? If not, that's cool. We'll move on. All right. Let's see here. Let's go back to. Let's see. We have answered some of these questions along the way, so I'm gonna kind of adjust here. We will go back to Dusty. What are some of the unexpected rewards or benefits of homeschooling that you're like, after doing this now, I didn't even think about this?
I think both of them are what I see in my kids. One of them is that they all have a personalized kind of love of learning in their own way, and I've gotten to see that and see them grow in that. And with the homeschooling model, it seems like they have an opportunity to focus on the things that they're interested in a little bit more. Especially since we started doing co-op, because there's, maybe languages that you might not find at the public school, or, or other kinds of classes, that, or either other subjects that maybe that, they could just focus on and just really dive deep, instead of having to switch classes, after 50 minutes and just forget about, about all of it. So, being able to see them get to learn and study things that they're interested in has been, inspiring for me, Another one is also with the kids, but we have a neighbor that has horses, and so they get to go ride horses with our neighbor every week, usually on Wednesday morning, during the morning hours during the day, till noon some days. And that's a really great situation. It's almost like a fun / discipleship kind of thing, because it's a godly, lady that's, in retirement years. And so that's been, I think those two, just getting to see my kids have some neat opportunities, I think has been something that appealed to me greatly. So,
Yeah. Anybody else on that?
I appreciate what you said about the opportunities that you get. You don't realize those, you're in an extraordinary place and you get extraordinary opportunities. It's amazing how the Lord brings those along. My two middle kids that are now 28 and 30, we lived on a little island of Guam. In 2008, they got to play in the 2008 Olympic Orchestra because we were in Guam.
wow.
Had we been in the States, they would have competed with so many other people to try to get those spots, but we were there, and they were in the Guam Territorial Band, which was amazing. But I think one of the benefits that I did not know when we first started out was the relationships that my kids have with one another. And as most of them are adults now, 18 up, they enjoy each other's company. And it just brings joy to me to watch them get together and to delight in one another and to support one another when there's something going on. But they're so close. They're their own best friends. And no matter if we're near or far, it doesn't matter. We have a family chat, and somebody's on it every day. And they don't all live in Texas, and they don't all live in Houston, but we're close. Everybody's close, and that was a huge benefit I never saw coming. We have a family that's very far apart, very spread out in age. In 2009, I had a 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 1st grader. I also had 3 married. I was diagnosed with cancer. I couldn't take care of my kids and do chemo. There's no way. The Lord already knew that. One of my married daughters took my 3 kids. They lived with her. They didn't have children yet. They lived with her, they lived with him, they had a mom and dad to look after them. They knew our family values and what we could watch on TV and what we couldn't, because they already were part of that. A huge benefit. I never saw that coming. And it brought those 3 kids so close to those other ones.
That's awesome.
That a huge benefit. I never saw coming.
Yeah, what were you gonna say, Amanda?
Yeah, I wanted to, I mean, it's nothing as profound as that, but I think one of the great benefits of homeschooling is the lack of importance placed on age and grade in your friends groups. Like my girls, when they have friends over that are all ages, half the time they'll like switch friends. You know, they'll hang out with their friends, and they'll hang out with their friends, and they don't really focus on age or grade very much. It's not important to them. Our oldest daughter really enjoys hanging out with the senior adult Sunday school class. Like, she enjoys talking with them. She plays piano for them each week, and she enjoys chatting with them. At one point, she went to the adult ladies Sunday school class. Like, the age segregation thing is not near. It just broadens their horizons, I think, as to who can be friends with them. Mm-hmm. Like, my daughter goes to what's it called? Grief Share. Mm-hmm. And there's people of all ages in that group. And man, she went out with my mom and a bunch of other ladies that were probably that age that have been going to that Grief Share group, dealing with like loss of like a spouse or, you know, something like that. And she had a great time. Like, she was having a blast with them. So that's one of those things that you don't focus on as much. Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. I think that gets through most of our questions that we've answered some of them already through our conversations. Did you all have any questions in the room? Yes, ma'am.
How do you do a diploma?
Good question.
I never had a diploma per se. I don't think we'd had an actual diploma. We just had the transcript, because that's what he needed to send to the college when he went. And I think I did a transcript for my second son, who went to a private college. I don't think I ever did an actual diploma.
You're just talking about the fancy paper that you look at, or actually calling it a diploma and like.
A diploma, because even if you don't need a transcript to go to college, anywhere you go,
You
they
need
want
a transcript.
diploma.
Yes.
And they all have asked for
So
transcripts.
it's a transcript you need.
That's what
Yes.
you need. Is
Correct.
The transcript.
And we actually did write one of those fancy diploma things. We just printed one out, and my husband signed it as the principal for high school, and I signed it because I was their teacher for all the years, basically. And that was not a big deal to get that legal paper done. We had it notarized, and it was not a big deal. But the transcript, I went to lots of different resources to see what was required to graduate from an accredited school in Texas. What does Texas require? So many hours of English, so many hours of history, so many hours of math, so many hours of electives. And we plugged in to what those might have been. And we were then assigning credits, whether a half a credit or a full credit, depending on what that class was. My son was 13 and made a quilt, so for a homeschool kid, I gave him home economics for a semester. Yeah, so I mean, no big deal. That was an elective for him, but he got credit for it. He was an archer, so he got credit for PE, doing archery. But the academics, Texas, we wanted them to be able to stand before men, not just obviously stand before the Lord, but stand before men, so they could get into the school or career path that they knew they needed to be in. And every one of them needed a high school transcript.
Yeah.
And I have all of mine, but I've shared my son, I must have shared it with 50 women on a homeschool deal, just to show them how we did it. And it helps to have a template.
Yeah, that's what I need. I need something to.
I think now, I've heard, you may know this, that they don't want them in paper form anymore. They want them emailed.
I believe that. But there's a couple of, if you're strongly considering homeschooling, I would strongly urge you to join either HSLDA, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. That's a national. HSLDA. It's like a national legal defense, like homeschool support. They'll help you with various laws, all of that kind of thing. Or the Texas Homeschool Coalition, so THSC. We are part, Dusty and I are part of the Texas Homeschool Coalition, but you can mess around on their website a lot if you join, but they have like transcripts, like a transcript
Yes.
template. They have what are the requirements for Texas.
Texas.
You know, like, so it's a good place to start. I got a transcript. One of Catherine's math teacher was kind enough to just email me her son's transcript that she had put together,
And you can.
and we use that. We also in the this is high school, and I know you're talking about an 8-year-old. I'm not sure who you're.
I have 3 and 5.
Okay, so this is a good time to be looking at that. But also like a course description, like once you get to the high school level, like I have a separate document that describes the course that they took, just as an extra. It's not as huge of a deal since we are doing the Lone Star. Like, I don't think they're gonna need to see that, but when she was in 8th grade and taking high school classes, I didn't know that's what we'd be doing. So I still have all of that. It's better to have too much information than not enough.
Okay. Cool. Great question. Any other questions?
Okay. I am all over the place. And I don't know where to start. But my husband is not so sure about homeschooling, but I am not sending my kids to school, even if they want to, because I do so much research what they're doing in kindergarten. So I also was a private homeschool. My mom sent me, I was raised Catholic, so she had me with the nuns, and I was there a whole week, and I will go home only on weekends.
Wow.
So, and then she put me like the last year of, I don't know, 9th grade. I went back to public school, and I just didn't like it that much, but whatever, you know. So I do see the difference, you know, the level of education is definitely better in privates. But anyhow, so I would not put my kids, even they want to go to public school, especially at this young age. But my goal is like her, when I heard her talking, you know, I want them to know more about God. Then, you know, I'm a hairdresser. I immigrated from Mexico. So to me, college is not that important, you know, because I'm being so blessed to have, I'm rich right here compared to when I was in Mexico. So I want them, you know, even if they just want to do a skill, you know,
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And there's more available for that now. There are actually, which wasn't available when my boys were young, there's a welding course here that you will finish with your certifications.
Yeah, so I'm kind of redirect them on that path, because college is a joke to me. It's too expensive, and people
Very.
don't really. Oh, you had to really, you know, the character. You build the character,
Yeah.
and you do what. But I don't know if that's what the Lord has for us. But my point is, yes, I'm not trying to. And I told my husband he has no tell. They're not going to public school.
You
That
laid down the
sounds like-
law.
Sounds like something I would say.
I'm just like, and so anyhow, but my first language, you know, it's obviously not English, but I know some things. But I also know there's a lot of curriculums that you have the video, and then they can learn. I've been doing Jesus Loves Me just on YouTube, and they've been learning.
Perfect.
But I have not been very, like you know, I
Consistent.
just don't know how to do that.
And that's okay. There's so many
And-
different ways to homeschool.
But I wanted to. I wanted to be more consistent on that. But anyhow, I'm not into academics yet. My daughter already knows ABCs. She's